There are three core things you must have to scale any info or coaching offer to 10, 20, 30K plus a month consistently. And more so, 10K you can get away with having some of this being a bit sloppy. But if you actually want to scale beyond that 20K, 30K, 40K plus, you need to have these three things dialed in. And I'm sick and tired of all the nonsense you see online and everyone trying to overcomplicate everything. When really, if you literally just dial in these three things, you will be able to scale and you'll see results a lot faster than you will expect. And I want to mention, I have not used any retention strategies whatsoever, no cool editing or any of that. If you can't literally just focus for this video, you'll always struggle to scale any offer because focus is the most important thing. So anyway, let's just get straight into it. So the three core pillars, they're super dependent on each other. And if I've designed them in a way of kind of like gears, and even if one gear stops, the entire system collapses. And the core, they're all equally important, but at the core of everything is actually attracting qualified buyers. Because if you can't attract qualified buyers, no matter how dialed in your systems are, and no matter how good your content is, you're not actually going to be able to scale because you don't actually have qualified buyers. And at the core of that is your ICP. But I'm going to break it down in a way that you haven't seen before. So you guys have already been told over and over again, ICP, avatar, niche, blah, 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 blah. You need to know exactly who you're speaking to, directly call them out. But everyone just says you need to understand their desires and understand their struggles. And then supposedly that's going to be enough to be able to actually scale and know your ICP off the back of your hand so you can actually make content that converts and actually be able to dial everything in. But it's not enough. Because what I've realized is that most creators, they either don't know their ICP, they vaguely have one, but they don't know them in enough detail, or they've just chosen the completely wrong ICP, which will be impossible to scale. And I'm going to be breaking down later in this video how you can actually avoid choosing the wrong ICP, which is going to be catastrophic if you do that. And the reason you actually need to know your ICP is because you need to understand the psychology of the buyer. But most people don't really understand the psychology of the buyer, the psychology of the person they're trying to get to invest into their offer. And they don't understand who they're really talking to. And that's why their content doesn't convert. And they don't understand why, but those are the reasons why. The main reasons why is because they don't actually understand their ICP. And when they are creating content, that messaging is absolutely is rubbish because they don't understand the ICP. So that messaging isn't hitting, isn't resonating with the person, and they're not converting, okay? But I've created a 6-step framework that makes sure that you, beyond just desires and struggles, which everyone mentions, it really breaks down and allows you to understand your ICP off the back of your hand. And that is super, super, super important because when you know that, when you know your ICP off the back of your hand, you can then create content, you can do the marketing and make sure that your messaging is actually hitting and your messaging is actually resonating and your messaging is actually having an impact, and all that energy you're spending on content and marketing isn't wasted, because it is wasted if your messaging is wrong, then you're never going to be able to scale and all that energy you're putting into content is wasted. So anyway, if you want to attract qualified buyers, write converting content, know what problems to solve, know what beliefs to break, build the right offer. That's something I'm going to cover as well. Choose the right funnel and write high converting call to action so that people actually raise their hand when you do a CTA. Then you need target. So the first letter T in target stands for their identity. And their identity is essentially how your ideal buyer sees themselves in relation to their work or their skills or their status. And it shapes literally how they act, what they believe they should, or what they believe they should be achieving more so, and whether your messaging hits or goes straight over their head. And you really, really don't want your messaging to go straight over your head, because even if you're running ads, and I'm not sitting here saying you need to run ads, because most of the time you don't. You need to have your organic content dialed in. That's the most important thing. But my point is, even if you're doing everything correctly with your content and your content is super good, if the messaging behind the content, again, is wrong, which is based upon all this information which I'm about to share about your ICP, you are going to waste your time and you're going to waste your energy. And essentially, identity really matters, because when you understand, their identity, you understand how to actually speak to them properly. And you can speak to them, more importantly, at their level, at a level which they are actually going to understand and actually going to relate to. And you can call out their real frustrations, not the surface level excuses. And you can explain problems in a way that actually feel personal to them, which obviously is going to increase the resonance. And then most importantly, with all of this, you can position yourself as someone who can actually help in their mind. In their mind, you can be positioned as someone who can help, which is essentially the end goal. Because if you are that person who they believe, isn't just trying to sell them something, they're actually able to help me, and they're able to help me get out of this, situation that I'm in, and achieve the things that I want to achieve, you don't need any manipulation. You don't need to be salesy. You don't need any 63-step funnels to get a client. They're going to naturally gravitate towards you, which is the whole thing about the silent sales system, which I realized I didn't even mention. I've called it silent sales system because you're going to be attracting people. You're not going to be that salesy person or that salesy guru or focusing on marketing all the time. With the silent sales system, you can actually attract people rather than just always coming off as that person who just wants to sell something and make money, which of course I know you don't want to come across that way. And a key insight about identity is that it creates resistance to change. Like, for example, if someone already sees themselves as knowledgeable, they'll resist any advice that implies that they're missing some kind of information, or there's a lacking of knowledge on their behalf, because they already see themselves as a know-it-all. And let's just say, as another example, maybe a better example, if there's someone who believes their content is absolutely amazing, but in retrospect it's actually kind of rubbish, or not rubbish, but it needs a lot of improvement, then because they think their content is so good, it's going to be such an uphill battle to actually take them through a mentorship and actually help them improve their content, because in their head, my content is already good. It doesn't even need improving, and it's going to even be difficult to even get that person inside your mentorship in the first place, let alone have your mentorship even work with them. Okay, and then the next thing is there's actually a few different layers to the identity, and the first one is the self-label. Like, I'm a creator, I'm a coach, I'm a business owner. Business owner is way too broad, but just as an example for you can understand what I'm talking about, the self-labels. But let's just say there's a person called Max, and your ICP is Max. But if you're calling out Steve, you're labeling Max as Steve. Max, the ICP that you want to attract, is never going to turn around and pay attention to you, because they don't identify as Steve, they identify as Max. And I know that's a silly example, but that is literally what it is. If you're calling out the wrong person, like if you're calling out your avatar, you think you're calling out your avatar, but they don't actually identify as that person or as that thing, as that label, then it's always going to be an uphill battle to actually resonate and actually attract them and actually turn them into clients. Okay. And the second thing about identity is the self-assessment. So that's where they think they are in their own journey. Like, for example, I'm not a beginner, I know how to get views, or I'm good at making content. And this tells you the level that they believe they operate at. And again, this is another layer that you should understand about your ICP, so you can actually, adjust things, adjust messaging, speak to them in specific angles, so they actually absorb what you're saying and don't actually just ignore your messaging completely and ignore all your marketing efforts. All right. And the third thing is the self-expectation. So what they believe they should already be achieving. For example, I should be making more money, I should have more customers or clients, I should be further along my journey. And this tells you all the pressures they feel to improve. And when you understand that, you can actually really just because essentially with the silent sales system as well, you're not using this manipulation which so many creators use to actually scale, which is something that we want to completely avoid. We don't want to be that type of person. When you actually just understand what kind of pressures do they feel on their shoulders, what is weighing them down, and why is it weighing them down? When you understand these things, again, you can then start to talk to them and actually make them feel like you care about them, because you actually do care about them. But without you knowing all these things, you can't actually show that you care, because you don't really understand them. All right. And the fourth thing about identity is the perceived reputation. So how they think others see them. For example, people think I'm knowledgeable, people come to me for advice, people see me as the expert, and this shapes how they believe they need to show up and how they're really going to engage with information or engage with specific topics. And understanding your ICP's perceived reputation is really important, because it lets you understand how they currently believe the world looks at them, what the world currently believes about them. And that way you can, again, say things in a specific way. It's difficult to give you a very specific example because there's a lot of different ICPs. But my point is, you can say things again in a way that's actually going to relate to them and align with how they want to be seen in the world and how they want to be seen and perceived by other people, which again, then will make your messaging and content a lot more effective, and you're going to be able to convert at a lot higher rate. And the next thing you need to know is their aspirations. And I don't just mean desires. Like, what is desires? Surface level, okay, I want to make 10K a month. I want to scale my business. I want to sign clients consistently. But there's actually more to it than that. Those are desired results, but there's actually also desired feelings and desired identity. And they're equally as important to know, so that you can actually start to paint that picture for your ICP in your content and in your marketing. And of course, that's going to increase the buyer's intent when you can paint that picture and show them that you can essentially help them achieve that desired identity and achieve those desired feelings. And just as an example of the desired specific results, that could be, for example, like I want to sign clients consistently. I want to make real money from my content. I want my content or coaching business to be full-time. I want to hit 10 to 20K plus a month, like all the other creators I see. And the desired feelings, like these are actually like emotional states. They're not goals, but they're like feelings, like feeling financially safe, feeling confident, feeling in control, feeling proud, feeling respected, free, secure, fulfilled. These are feelings, and the feelings are, I'm going to cover this later, but the feelings are what drive them. And it's really important because they want to feel these things that they're currently not feeling. And it's really aggravating them that they're not feeling this way, and they really just wish they could feel respected. They could feel proud of themselves. They're not proud of themselves. They want to be proud of themselves. And understanding all these things that your ICP wants to feel is important, again, so that you can make content that actually converts and resonate with them on a level that no one else is resonating with them. And then in that case, when you're doing this and when you understand your ICP in the depth that I'm showing you, you will stand out from the market and stand out from the competition instantly, because that person, the ICP, will feel and see that you actually understand them, and they'll feel really heard. And then the desired identity. Some examples are like, I want to feel like a successful entrepreneur, or more so, I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to be known as an authority. I want to be someone who gets clients consistently. So that's not so necessarily identity, actually. That's probably shouldn't be here. But I want to be the person people trust enough to buy from. I want to be seen as a leader, not just another creator. Identity is who they want to be. And again, this is really important to understand about your ICP, about your target audience. And the next thing you have to know about your ICP is the roadblocks that they are facing. And the roadblocks are essentially the real problems that are stopping them from actually getting what they want. And I'm not talking about the surface level excuses. I'm talking about the actual real reasons why they are stuck. And I've categorized these into two things. And the first one being the skill gaps. So things they don't actually know how to do yet. As an example for you guys, it might be, I don't know how to create content that converts. I don't know how to define my real ICP. I don't know how to attract the right audience. I don't know how to identify my bottleneck. For example, if you don't know how to identify a bottleneck, you're never actually going to be able to focus and fix the right things, and you're always going to be struggling to scale. These are skill gaps that your ICP are missing. You really need to understand them. And the next thing that's part of roadblocks is the beliefs, the actual things and fears and doubts and beliefs that are holding them back. For example, I've heard these things over and over again with a lot of creators. It's like, I'm scared to niche down. They believe that if they niche down, that they'll lose out on money. You need to go viral to make sales. Views equals clients. I don't feel like an authority yet. So that's an internal belief about themselves and not feeling like they're essentially good enough yet or able to coach people, okay? I will look too salesy. I don't think people will buy from me. People won't buy if I charge high ticket. These are all different types of beliefs, and you have to know and understand the beliefs of your ICP, because what you can then do is you can then manage those beliefs and change those beliefs, because those beliefs in one way or another, they're holding them back. They're stopping them from becoming and doing the things that they need to do to achieve the results that they want. And you need to shift those beliefs. And sometimes those beliefs, like there will be beliefs that you shift after they join as a client, but there are a lot of beliefs that you need to shift in your content. Otherwise, they will never even think about becoming your client. And you need to shift them in your content, shift these beliefs and shift their paradigms in your content so that you can increase their buyer's intent and get them out of those thought processes that are stopping them from actually taking action and moving forward. And the next thing you have to know is the given attempts of things that they've already tried in the past that didn't get them the results they wanted. And this obviously gives you context into the things they've tried. You've done this, you've done X, you've done Y, you've done Z, and you're still stuck. And that's because the real reason you're stuck, or the real thing that you need to get X, Y, Z result is blah, 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 blah. Again, this is and in a way, it positions you as more of an authority, because when they can see that you've actually understood, you already know what they've tried before. You already know what they've been doing, and you already know their situation. They're going to be like, oh, this person really gets it, because clearly their solution does work, because they know that people are trying this, they're trying that and trying the other and not getting results. They're going to be more likely to buy from you when they know that you actually understand them and understand the situation and know what they've tried before. And obviously that gives you more context and helps you understand why they're actually frustrated, which is, again, things that you can talk about. And just as an example, like I've tried posting consistently, but I still can't scale. I've tried hooks, trends, and viral tactics, but it didn't bring me any clients. I've tried doing what top creators do. I've copied their funnels. I've copied, essentially everything I can find about them, but I'm still not getting clients like they are. What is missing? Okay, I've tried switching niches to attract buyers. That didn't work. Obviously, these are just examples, but you get my point. You need to understand the things that your ICP has done in the past. So again, you can add to that layer of understanding and increase that resonance and make sure that you're actually creating content that is hitting and messaging that is really effective. And the next thing you need to understand is the emotional drivers. And these are essentially the deeper thoughts, the feelings, and the internal pressures that your ideal buyer is experiencing. The person that you're trying to attract, you need to understand these things, the emotions that they essentially want to escape and move away from. And yes, I've mentioned here that there are some things that they want to move towards. But actually, I want to keep this section only for emotional drivers, the painful ones, the negative ones, the things that they don't want to feel anymore. Because the desired feelings are the good things, how they want to feel. And these I want to focus on the emotions that they want to escape on. And this layer, it adds to the demand, when you understand, like, for example, I can say, like, you've been posting content for months or even maybe years, and you have this feeling of pressure where, like, because you've been getting views and you've been gaining followers, you feel like the money should have followed, but by now it's not following. And because of this, situation that you're in, you feel kind of stuck. And that feeling of stuck is giving you a bit of hopelessness. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I will never be able to actually make, the numbers and make the money that I'm seeing other creators hit. These are all feelings that maybe some of you guys might be experiencing. And again, understanding these emotional drivers about your ICP is really important. And just as an example, like feeling unsafe, it creates fear and it creates a desire for stability. Like you might, your target ICP, they might feel unsafe in their job, feeling like at any given moment, that they could just get kicked out of their job. And that's why they feel unsafe and they have a fear and they desire some kind of stability. And that's why, for example, your make money online offer or your make money offer where you help them, make money that is not from their job is going to be the amazing solution for them. And you can talk about these. Or the feeling of being overlooked that leads to embarrassment or pressure and desire to be valued. The feeling of being out of control, that again leads to uncertainty and a desire for clarity. You guys are here because you want clarity. You keep trying, you're doing things, you're putting in the effort, but you're just not getting the results that you want. You have a desire for clarity on what to do and clarity on how to get the results that you want. Feeling trapped leads to frustration, and that gives a desire for freedom, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go on all these ones, but I hope you get the point that it's really important to understand all these things, the emotional drivers, the given attempts, the roadblocks, the aspirations, and the identity, so that you can actually make content actually resonates and actually messaging that really connects on a deep level that none of your competitors are doing, so that you can really just easily attract buyers and turn those views into clients rather than just those views into people that make your insights look cool, but it's not actually paying your bills or making you rich. And the last letter in the target framework is the takeaway. Just generally speaking, the whole understanding, like summarizing the whole understanding about your ICP, about all these things that we covered, which is really important. And I want to tell you guys something about, why you're actually stuck, like the actual truth, why you are stuck. Because it's not your effort. And it's not because other people are just getting lucky, and you are not good enough. It's just not that case. They're not better than you. None of these people you're seeing are better than you. They are literally the same as you, or even in a lot of cases, a lot less qualified. They're a lot less qualified and a lot less credible than you, but they just have, specific information. They're just doing specific things right, which is why they're able to see the results that they're seeing. And essentially for you, the actual reason that you're stuck is because somewhere in your whole ecosystem, somewhere across your whole pipeline, from the journey of getting views to actually turning them into clients, something is missing, whether that's your ICP, whether that's the clarity of your offer, whether that's actually having buyer-focused content, whether that's your conversion systems. Whatever it is, something is missing, and that's what is making you stuck. And when you fix this, it creates a predictable path from views to demand to actually getting clients and actually making money. So that takes us onto the second pillar. We're done with the first pillar. And that takes us onto the second pillar, which is content that converts. All right. And again, I'm going to say this again before I start this section, the second pillar, content that converts. If you don't know your ICP, you will never be able to create content that converts. All right. You have to know your ICP to understand what's going to actually trigger them and understand the psychology to make them move them from just being a watcher to actually being a buyer inside your audience, which is what everyone wants. So this section, we're going to be talking about creating content that attracts buyers, warms them up, shifts their beliefs, and increases their intent to work with you. It's not about random posting, and it's definitely not viral chasing, all right? It's literally just a whole ecosystem, like I mentioned, that's designed to help you generate clients. And I know a lot of you guys have always heard about, target your ICP when you're making your content. But I don't actually want you to just target your ICP. What you should be doing is actually targeting your dream client. And your dream client is essentially your fan base, the people that resonate with you. They actually like you. And when someone likes you, they're obviously more likely to buy from you. They like you and they resonate with you in the sense of your beliefs, in your values, in your morals, in your hobbies, on something beyond just specific desire and specific struggles, something beyond just those specific ICP niche things. They like you and they resonate with you. And the good thing about this is when you actually attract your dream client, you're going to start enjoying working with these people that are coming to you because they resonate with you. They're on a similar wavelength in one way or another, and you have the same views, you have the same outlooks, you have the same beliefs, you have the same energy. And essentially, that's going to make it a lot more enjoyable to actually work with them. So of course, if you create content that is just targeting towards your ICP, you're going to have a bit of a smaller audience, okay? It's just natural, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you create content that actually attracts your dream client, you have a larger total addressable market. So your audience is a bit larger. And that doesn't mean you're getting unqualified views, because what happens is, and I'm going to tell you and show you in the next step how to actually do this. But what happens is you attract people that you actually want to work with, and that are going to be enjoyable and fun to work with, and they're not going to make you hate your business. But those people are also part of your ICP. So then you're also attracting not just watchers, because if you only attract these people without this, you're going to attract watchers. But when you're doing both of this, when you're doing attracting these people and attracting your ICP, you're going to be creating an audience and attracting people, qualified viewers, qualified buyers, and then you're actually going to be able to scale. And it's your whole journey with scaling your offer and scaling your business is going to be completely different. So how do you actually attract your dream client and then create content that actually converts? And I know you guys have probably heard about top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel before. And I just want to quickly say before I move on to this section is that people might categorize things specifically slightly differently. So don't be too critical on exactly where each section goes. As long as you're doing each of them and you have each type of content, then you will be able to create content that actually converts. So the first thing is top of funnel content, and that is essentially what pulls in new people into your world. Again, it's not super specific, but it's still connected and relevant to what you do in one way or another. You're not just randomly posting about your dog and posting pictures or videos about your dog, but it's still related to your niche, or more so related to you and your experiences in it, or your experiences that somehow relate to it in one way or another, like your opinions, your stories, or your personal lessons that are again related to that industry, or the content that speaks to your audience or identity. You can sometimes tell a bit more personal stories about how you've struggled with specific things. That also shows you are a human and people relate to that and people connect with it. But again, not just random things like, I don't know, just posting videos about your dog, all right? This is emotional, relatable, and shareable. And it's essentially what makes people like you, what makes people see you beyond just this person who can fix this problem or this person who can give me this outcome. It makes people see who you really are in one way or another, at least part of who you are, all right? And the whole goal of top of funnel content is to reach a wider market and make people feel like I relate to this person, or I like this person, or I like something about this person, or I want to be like this person. I want their lifestyle, something along those lines. So the next thing is middle of funnel content, where essentially you're making them problem and solution aware, like the belief shifting content that shows how you think and why your approach actually works, how you actually help people who struggle with this thing, and how you can help people actually achieve these desires, blah, 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 blah. And that's essentially, where you build trust, where you build authority, and you build curiosity, because you start to, peep and show people that you can help with this specific thing. And that's what actually creates and attracts your ICP. And you move them from just being aware of the problem to being aware of your own solution. And that is really important, because then you would then position your solution as, on a pedestal compared to other things. And they start to see this person really knows what they're doing, and they can actually help me, and they can actually help me get those results. And this is what makes your dream client and the people in your audience, or the leads, essentially think This person gets my situation. Their breakdown of this specific problem is so accurate and it makes sense why I'm actually stuck. They clearly know what they're talking about. I like how they think. I want to know more about their methods. And the next thing, the glue that puts everything together and blows everything out of the park is the proof. This is the bottom of funnel content. And you know how they say like a picture shows 1,000 words, or the picture has 1,000 words, or something like that. My point is, when you show the proof, it becomes undeniable that you can clearly get those results for the people, all right? That's case studies, testimonials, how we fixed this problem for this client, breaking down your own method and how it achieved X, Y, Z results, or the A/B transformation stories, diagnosing the real problem and showing the results that came after fixing the real problem. That is literally the thing, like the straw that breaks the camel's back, which literally shows the people in your audience, it shows that lead, that viewer who's watching your content, damn, this person can actually get me the results. And that part is super, super important. All right, so let's move on to the third pillar, which is dialed in systems. All right, and I'm going to break these down into 4 things: the funnels, the offer itself, the data and optimization, and the fulfillment. All right, so firstly, let's talk about funnels. So I want to quickly say before I actually get into this section is there are multiple funnels and each of them work. A lot of them work, but you don't need a 63-step funnel. That's definitely something you don't need, all right? But they all work, but it depends on how warm or how cold your audience is. So this, contributes and creates a major factor. And obviously, there's a lot of small details in between the lines of each funnel and setting up each funnel, which I can't really talk about today in this one video. I'll probably make a specific video about the different funnels that you can have depending on how warm or how cold your audience is. But generally speaking, you would have seen these funnels. And just to show you as an example, like straight to, like you can do a call to action straight to the DMs. You talk to them in the DMs, you book a call, and then you actually have the call and you close them. Or for something like an audience that's a bit more colder, you can have a free community where then you nurture them inside that free community. Then you get them to book a call and you get them, to apply on a form. Then if they're qualified, they book a call, blah, 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 blah. So generally speaking, I can't really tell you exactly in this video, this is the funnel you need to use, because it really depends on what platform you're using, what platform your audience and your leads and your views are coming from. If you're on YouTube, it's different. If you're on short form, TikTok is different. If it's on Instagram, it's different. Some of them overlap, of course, but if you're on YouTube, for example, you'll more likely be able to send them directly to just a form and to book a call after they, make sure that they're actually qualified after they fill the form, because they're already very nurtured. But if you're dealing with a very cold Instagram audience, as an example, that aren't really nurtured whatsoever, then sending them straight to book a call when they barely even know you, they barely know anything about you, they're not even nurtured or warmed up to you, they just have seen your content, then it's going to be very difficult to actually close on those calls, and you're going to have a very low close rate. So again, I can't tell you exactly what off funnel to have, but generally speaking, these are the ones that are very effective, depending on how cold or how warm your audience what your audience is. All right, I couldn't speak there. But the next thing I want to talk about is the offer, because many creators have bad offers, and that's actually like, regardless of how good their content is, how dialed their ICP is, if they have a bad offer, then it's not going to sell. It's simply put as that, which is why all of these things which I'm talking about today are really important to actually have them in sync and in harmony and working together rather than working against each other. So the first problem is either having like an offer that is way too broad, because again, similar to the ICP, if you're just trying to talk to everyone, you're not actually going to make someone feel like this is really made for me. You want to make them feel like this offer has fallen out of heaven and is like presented to them, and it feels like almost like them seeing like, I don't know, 100 kilos of gold. Like maybe they're not going to get that excited, but you get my point. It's going to actually feel like, wow, this is interesting. I really want this. This might actually be able to help me. Or it's packaged poorly, another problem, or it's not actually fully aligned with the content. And what I mean by this is like, something I talk about a lot is cohesive messaging. And again, if your content isn't really reflective of what your offer is, like for example, if you're talking a lot about fat loss, but then when you come to speak about your offer, and again, I'm just giving a random fitness example because it's easy. But if you're talking about fat loss in your content, and then in your fitness offer, you're saying, do you want to, I don't know, build muscle, become more mobile, or lose fat? Versus the person who is, and that's your offer, it's giving them all three things, versus the person who is talking about fat loss in their content, but when it comes to their offer, it's specifically about go from this weight to this weight, lose, shed the pounds, get rid of the dad bod, whatever. you're essentially talking, your offer is specific to the content that you're actually making. And then the next thing I've seen a lot, which is people actually massively undervalue themselves. And I've realized that most people actually undervalue themselves, not because it's logical, but because they're actually scared, because they think they need to start low, because they think their audience won't pay for that, pay for that high ticket, or they think they need more testimonials first, or that, for example, not everyone's going to charge 6K, some charge less, some charge more, depending again on your audience. But for example, 6K is too expensive or nobody will buy it. And I want to show you something about pricing psychology, because it's crazy to see that something so simple as this makes a huge difference, and it actually is effective when you put it in and place it in the real world. Like, as an example, when you charge 6K or everyone else is at 2K, charging 2K, the buyer is unconsciously going to assume that this person who's charging more, the 6K person, they know something that others don't, and their method must be superior. Like, let's say, for example, you're in a supermarket, you're buying a chocolate bar, and you see a $2 chocolate bar and a $20 chocolate bar. You're going to be looking at that $20 chocolate bar and you're going to be thinking, why is that so much more expensive? What is so special about it? There must be something special about it. There must be some kind of reason as to why it's a lot more expensive. And it's literally the same thing with the pricing psychology. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the data and optimization. And the data is the backbone of every single business. And without this, it's going to be really difficult to scale, because data and tracking the key metrics and having data allows you to identify what's actually broken, allows you to fix the right bottleneck, not spend loads of energy and maybe even money fixing the wrong bottleneck, which is obviously not going to allow you to scale because it's the wrong bottleneck, but allows you to make decisions based on data. And again, it removes the hope and pray feeling, and it actually allows you to create predictable growth. And I just want to show you, I'm not going to, again, it depends on what, kind of funnel you're running, what data you need to collect. It varies from one model to another, depending on the funnel and the systems you have. But generally speaking, as an example, I'm going to show you why it's important to collect this data. Like, for example, this is like every single closer that is within my ecosystem, they have to submit an end of day report form whenever they've had a day where there were scheduled live calls, all right, where there were scheduled calls. And essentially, like, let's just say, for example, okay, scheduled calls to live calls. When I have these two pieces of data, I can understand what the show up rate is. When I understand what the show up rate is, I can understand whether it's a good or a bad show up rate. If there's only a 30% show up rate, I know there's like all that effort that we're putting into booking calls, only 30% of people are showing up. If we just literally double that to 60%, we're going to double the amount of money that this client makes. That's how important it is to actually know the show up rate. Or for example, your close rate. If you have live calls, like how many live calls you've had, and then you can see how many closes you've had, you can calculate your close rate, and most importantly, know if that's a bottleneck or not. If you have a very, like, for example, like one of my clients had a 6% close rate. 6%. And when I got them to track their data, and then they told me their close rate was 6%, I replaced their closer, literally almost overnight, their close rate went up to 33%. 33%. Look at and it transformed their business. So look at how simple, like, just data like this can make such a huge difference in your business and allow you to actually predict it, like, know what bottlenecks actually solve and know how to actually scale. It's almost that simple, all right? And the last thing I want to talk about here is fulfillment, because the better results you get for your clients, the better the testimonials, and then you can attract more clients and higher quality clients too. You really only have one reputation, and once you get a bad rep, there's literally no way to come back. But one thing, as an example, as part of the fulfillment and part of the way and strategy to improve the fulfillment, is collecting these two things. Is firstly, when someone actually signs on as a client, knowing firstly what is the main reason they actually signed up, what actually made them join, and how did they actually hear about the coaching. And this data is super, super, super important, because again, you can understand, are they coming from Instagram Reels? Is it from the stories? Is it from like the TikTok? Is it from maybe YouTube, depending on what platforms you have? And what is the main reason that they signed up? And when you understand what is the thing that's actually making them take out their wallet and pay you money, that's such important data that will allow you to double down on the marketing that's working and stop putting energy into the marketing and the things that aren't actually generating you clients and aren't actually the reasons that they're actually signing up. And again, I want to show you a quick example, like onboarding experience form. Like, you need to understand, the onboarding experience is the most important part of everything, because that's like they've just paid, they're anxious, they're a bit nervous, but they're also excited. And this is where you turn those nerves from like fear into, I have made a good decision and I can see, I have to obviously pull through with this, but I can see that this is going to be good for me. And you want them to feel that way. But if you have a bad onboarding experience, then you're going to basically increase the likelihood of buyer's remorse, where essentially they regret investing. And if the whole onboarding experience, like if they're like sitting there for like a few days after they purchased, wondering what the next steps are, that's not going to give them a good experience. That's not going to give them trust in you. That's not going to make them feel confident and happy about the decision that they just made and the money that they just invested in you. So you need to make sure the onboarding experience is really good. And again, collecting like data about the onboarding experience. First name, last name, blah, blah, blah. Rate your onboarding experience. Reason for choosing that score. What can we improve about the onboarding experience? Having these data points is really important. And then again, like a client satisfaction survey form or a client exit survey form, even like just knowing like how your clients are actually doing, whether they're enjoying and understanding and collecting this data, because essentially everything is just data. And when you have data points about how their journey is going, you can, for example, ask them, okay, what can we do to actually improve? What can we actually do to wow you? And how well, for example, were your issues resolved? When you know how well were your issues resolved, if you're getting low rating, then people are going to be frustrated about that. And maybe that's why people aren't renewing, all right? Because you're not actually solving the issues that they're bringing up to you. And for example, if they answer, like, what can we do to wow you? And then you do that, or obviously you can't do everything, people say, because clients sometimes ask like things that are just not even possible. But generally speaking, you can start to understand, what is actually going to impress them and how can I make this experience better? I hope that, that's the point I'm making here. And even if they don't sign up or they don't renew, you can still send them a client exit survey form to understand why they didn't renew. What made them originally join, but why did you leave? And what can we actually improve? And then that gives you data for then next time, or then you can start actually improving those things that made that person, unless it was for a financial reason, not renew. And if it's something that you can fix, you fix it. It's literally as simple as that. And essentially, like, this whole system, when you do it right, the silent sales system, you really will be able to scale and you really will be able to actually enjoy having a business. It's not supposed to be, grueling. It's not supposed to be a horrible experience where you're just like always frustrated. When you just have these right systems, and obviously I know I can't tell you everything in one video. That's impossible. I'm not trying to pretend like I've said everything that's going to allow you to scale. But generally speaking, when you have these three things, when you actually understand, again, your ICP, when you have dialed in systems, the offer, the funnels, the sales team, everything, all of these things, when you actually make content that converts, all of the pieces are going to fall together and come together, and it's going to actually allow you to activate, maybe that sounds a bit cheesy, but activate the silent sales system and actually attract people and not be salesy and not be that guru who comes across at least as not caring about the product or not caring about the people, but actually just position yourself as someone who can genuinely help that person. And when you are positioned again in that person's eyes as the person who literally just cares for them, they relate to you, they like you, and they can see that clearly you know what you're talking about, it's going to be obviously a lot easier to actually turn them into your clients. And you are a lot closer than you think. I just want to say that you're literally just a few good moves away from transforming your business and potentially, depending on where your business is, at transforming your life.